20 series. This is FrSky Steve, and today we're talking about extracurricular activities. So we are now trying to figure out how to live with your transmitter, and let's talk about some things that I've kind of maybe briefly covered throughout the series here. The thing I want to show you is this right here. This set of buttons. Well, of course, this one right here is your scroll wheel. It makes you go around. If you move this around, it scrolls to different things. And you can scroll from one screen to another just by using the scroll wheel, which is helpful. If you would like to go faster from one screen to the other, you can hit the tab key. And I'll show you, it also works in your models. So tab, you can go to the second page, back to the first page. It's the same as swiping that way and swiping back this way. I find it a little bit faster to do that. Also, when you go into system doesn't quite do as much because there's only a couple things you see on the second page here. Anyway, when you get back to the home screen, you're probably wondering, what do these keys do? Obviously, we've shown you time and time again, press the model key, go right into model select. Not model select, but you go into model menu and you press the system key, you go into the system menu. You press the display key, you get into this configure screens, which is kind of bizarre because once you have your screen set up, you probably not ever want to come back here again. And then return, of course, gets you back to where you wanted it to go. However, there's actually some cool things you could do. If you're in this main home screen, if you long press a model, you'll go into model select, and that's exciting. Hit return to get out of it. If you long press on system, it does nothing, which is not super exciting. It just brings you into system. It's the same as short pressing on it, so long pressing doesn't do anything. If you long press on display, well, that does something kind of cool. It brings you into outputs. How do you get in here and change this? So what I'm going to do is take you into, actually it's under the gear icon, which is system setting, and we're going to go into hardware. It's the very last thing here. So you can see kind of this cheat sheet already on here, and the thing that I showed you, the configure screens, I don't particularly care for that. I mean, realistically, when I'm flying and I'm at the field, there's really no point ever getting to this screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this, and I want to change it for something that is a flight data record, and I'm going to use on RX1. I showed this on a switch in the last video, but now when we're working with it, if I were to quickly press it, what it does, it brings up the end of the flight, all the telemetry. And you can, this is actually really cool because it shows you minimum and maximums for VFR on 2.4 gigahertz and 900 megahertz as well. I really think that's handy. You hit return to get out of it. And then the other one that I was not a super fan of is, well, it's not a fan of it, it just doesn't do anything, is under home key mapping. If you look, you'll see that if you system long, it does nothing. And what I want that to be is, I want that to be models, and I want to go into mixes because I spend a lot of time going into mixes. However, if you're doing something like maybe you're spending a lot of time trimming, you can select trim as opposed to mixes. So it's up to you to figure out what you like about that. Okay, so that is it for this portion of the video. Now we're going to move on to the trainer. And one of my buddies at the field bought this really cool plane. He got a deal on it used, and he was out flying around it for a couple weeks, and I finally, he's just having a great time flying this plane. It's kind of like a Timber. And I finally said, Bob, hey, I want to ask him to fly his plane, but I didn't really want to take his transmitter and go fly his plane. I didn't want to be responsible for it. I also didn't want him to like hand over the transmitter to me and then at some point have me hand it back over to him. I said, Bob, let me show you how to set up the trainer. And that one is pretty straightforward. All you do is hit the airplane icon, and we go to the next screen right here, go to trainer, and we actually have what it looks like is this. So I said, Bob, you're going to be the master, I'm going to be the slave, and we're going to set up the trainer. So what I did is I set myself up on slave, and normally it looks like this, and the trainer cable does work if you would like to go that route. You can, what we used was the Bluetooth. And when I set it up, there was a local address. These are a bunch of letters and numbers. It doesn't say Bob. It says, B6H4, a bunch of random letters and numbers. And I told him what they were. And then what he did is he set up master. And he also had it set up on Bluetooth. And then what would happen is down at the bottom of this, you have to change this to master. Here we go. It would say distant address, and then it would be it would say something like scan for radios or something like that. You had to search for devices, I think is what it said. And then he would see my letters and numbers pop up, and he'd select it. And I know it would work because these things would start to fire up. When I move the sticks, you can see all these things moving. So it's going to work for the first 6 channels. And then what we did was gave him an active condition, which was we took a switch that he wasn't using, and we put on SG, we put when it was in the middle, I had control. When it was not in the middle, he had control. And long story short, it worked flawlessly. We tested on the ground, took it up. I had an opportunity to fly his plane for a few minutes, and it was great. Recently, we also had one other guy who wasn't really happy with the fact that these only had 6 channels because he's trying to teach his wife how to fly turbine, and she wanted to get her turbine waiver, and he needed 16 channels, and there was no way to do it with the FrSky system. So we got him a FWTM, fixed wing trainer module, and these things are about $30. And what they have inside of them is a little 2.4 gigahertz receiver. It's only good for about 1,000 feet, which is far, far, far more distance than you could possibly ever imagine. Typically, when you're flying with someone, you want to be standing right next to them. So with that, he's able to get all 16 channels. He said it links up immediately and works flawlessly. Like, he was just absolutely in love with it. And a couple months later, still in love with it. Just a great investment if you are looking to help teach someone how to learn how to fly RC. So either of these will work. The 6 channel, of course, in this situation was great. What I did with Bob was I set up my model, and a brand new model. I gave him no rates, no trims, and what I noticed was that it flew like it had no rates, no trims. So the next thing I would do is take that same new model, and I would add rates and expo and make it a little bit more hospitable for my flying style. But I had an opportunity to fly the plane, and it flew great, so really thankful. Now the last thing we're going to talk about is the multi-protocol module. And originally this was going to be the whole episode. The multi-protocol module is the thing that a lot of people are very interested in. This is actually a third-party product. FrSky does not manufacture this. This is made by another company, and it's part of the multi-protocol module project, or multi-protocol project, which is an open source project. And what it essentially is they take 4 different, what they call microcontrollers. There's 4 little things that are on boards, and they fit into a module. The module fits into the back of your transmitter. And what they do is they emulate over 100 different RC frequencies, or I wouldn't say frequencies, RC products. So they emulate everything from toys to some of old FrSky protocols that we've had from the past, and they also will do things like Grapner Hot, they'll do Old Futaba, and the thing that most people are interested in is Spectrum, because it will do DSM, DSM2, and DSMX. So you need two things to get working with this. First of all, you need to find a Lewis script, and in one of the previous videos, I was showing you around inside of Ethos Suite, and I showed you where to find all the different third-party protocols under Lewis scripts, and I mentioned one of them was the multi-protocol module Lewis script. So if you need help with that, you might need to come to a group like the FrSky Fixed Wing group. Actually, it's called the official FrSky Ethos group. Go in there, you can ask people about it. A lot of times people can send you the right Lewis script, so you don't have to download it and build it yourself. The other thing that you need is the multi-protocol module. They sell for around $40. Really nice. The only thing I would tell you about is when you're putting it on the back of your transmitter, you do not want to force it. I've seen far too many people break pins on the back of their transmitters because they try to manhandle these things. You kind of want them to go, especially on the X20 and X20S, you want them to go about 95% of the way down, and then it kind of lightly pushes in. And so you have to have the velvet touch when you're dealing with these things. That's the only downside to them. Okay, so to work with it, what you do is you go into the airplane icon right there, go to the RF system, close down the internal module. This is an external module, and one of the options when you install the Lewis script right is this multi-module. So all these are already built in, but you select this one, and you can, this one shows Spectrum DSM, and you see that it has DSM2, DSMX, and I believe there's a DSM. DSM is very, very old. I don't think there's a lot of receivers floating around that are still in DSM. And the thing I will say when working with Spectrum is that typically this is what happens. They say channels 1 through 6. A vast majority of these Spectrum receivers, especially the ones that are under $200, are 6 channels. So you move this down to channel 1 through 6. And the other thing I would say is that channel 5 tends to be the channel where you have to put on a switch, and you just make a simple, what you do is go back and watch our section on setting up landing gear, because it's almost identical to that. You create a free mix, and you specify channel 5, and you put it on an available switch, and it will go from -100 to 0 to 100. And when you move it up and down, it goes from what seems to be off to level to self level. So I should say off to stabilization to self level. So those three things. And I don't know the Spectrum jargon. I think it goes from off to AS3X to safe or something like that. But that's essentially what they do, and you can play with them. We've played with them quite a bit with the AeroScout. It seemed to work pretty well with that. The AeroScout did need to have a second switch set up for, I think it was the emergency mode. And so a lot of these times, if you get stuck with something, it's good to go into a group and ask people about it. So the FrSky Ethos Facebook group is a great one to get into and ask questions about it. I'll show you some of the other protocols that are on here. You have Devo. Are we not men? Okay. No. Okay. Not funny, Steve. All right. So SLT, that one, I've seen this one around. A lot of these, Radio Link is a big one. there are people who started off with Radio Link and maybe they have quite a few receivers and want to use them. OpenLRS, OMP Models has one of their own protocols, looks like. Kyosho is a manufacturer of models, and they did make some RC planes at one point. So, J6 Pro, I wonder if that's JR Propo. There's FrSky, there's our old one. So FrSky, the V series was our original 8-channel. It was ACCST V1 FlySky, and a lot of people started off with these type of transmitters and receivers. If you get them to work, it's great. eSky still makes a lot of models. A lot of these are toys. Corona had made some receivers. That was a pretty popular servo brand for quite a few years. Bugs Mini. It sounds like that's an absolute toy. And Hubson is like the toy drones. High Tech. I believe the High Tech is FHSS, so it's the same thing as the old Futaba. So these two are probably very similar. And yeah, so that's pretty much everything. If you have questions about this, please let me know. But for the most part, a lot of these, what I will tell you about the multi-protocol module is that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I do get people asking me questions from time to time and about why it's not working with their expensive Spectrum's receivers. And then after a while, I just mentioned to them, you know, you might just want to take that receiver out and sell it if you want to fly with our FrSky gear and put one of our receivers in. You're probably going to make money on the whole deal by the time you're done selling it. So when you do that as well, you're going to get telemetry. On the newest setup for Ethos, when the latest version of Ethos, now we're starting to get Spectrum telemetry as well. And all in all, it works fairly okay. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better than nothing, and that's what we had before. So with that, I wish you a good day, and thanks for watching. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. Otherwise, I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Talk to you soon.